Absolutely.
Colleen, I just saw you sent me an email. So actually, where is that? Hi, Maureen. Hey, Maureen, I had a question for you. So I was looking at the members that is listed on our page on the website. You know, when you look at the boards and commissions and you
and
pull
it's
up,
wrong.
Yeah.
I noticed that today.
What's that?
I noticed that today.
Who do we talk to get that fixed?
I guess I'll contact maybe the clerk's office and see if they do that.
Okay. I'm happy to help too if you need.
Okay.
Julie and Maureen, my camera is not working, and the only way I know how to fix that is to log out. So I'm going to shut down my computer and come back.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Colleen, you got your hair cut. It looks nice.
Oh, thank you. I guess surgical scissors and my own ineptness didn't hurt me too badly.
I'm impressed.
I keep cutting and cutting and it's still too short.
Well, that's why it's because you're cutting it.
That's the old carpenter's joke. You never heard that one?
No, that's a good one. Hi, Dave.
Hey.
Sonia, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
I see you have your IT help there.
Yes, he's always helping me in between the laptop, the iPad, or like, okay. He's very nice to help me through the process.
We've got her on her iPad tonight.
Oh, nice.
The laptop wasn't cooperating. Did you have a good July? Weren't you going on a trip?
I did. My vacation was in June. And then I had a bunch of people coming here, and that's all over. And now it's like school again.
It does feel like going back to school.
It does. It does feel like it.
Well, good. I'm glad you had a good time.
How about your July?
It was good. I went out to Wisconsin, visited with my 96-year-old great aunt. And
nice.
Yeah, and a bunch of her family. She had 11 kids, and they're just fun. They rent out a farmers union camp in Chippewa Falls. Yeah, and then we just stay at the camp.
That's awesome.
It was fun. It was really fun. And I'm just getting ready to go off to Crested Butte for the weekend. So
that sounds good.
It is good. I just have to get everything ready tonight.
So I heard on the news today that the first snow is going to happen up there. Not necessarily Crested Butte, but they were saying that the storm that's coming in tomorrow night is going to dump, or tomorrow is going to dump snow.
Okay, well, I saw that it was going to be 65 as the high and like 30 is the low when I'm down there. Yeah. So, but I'm so excited to sleep with a blanket.
Yeah, I'm over watering my plants. I've had to, the water, yeah, it's just been a tough summer.
It has. It's been long and hot and smoky.
So we have, okay. 6, 7, 8. I'll give everyone a couple more minutes to join. I know Monica's restarting her computer.
Yeah, my laptop was not cooperating at all. So good thing that I had plan B.
I saw that our old friend John is now the new sheriff.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I saw that they announced a new sheriff, but that was good. I think I met him on National Night Out because he went around with the city manager and Othaniel, and he visited with different people in the different groups that were hosting National Night Out.
Oh, great. There was a time, I want to say it was a good year, where he, if Tim or Dave could not attend, he would attend our committee meetings on their behalf. So he sat on this committee quite a few times.
Oh, very nice.
Was that Sam?
Oh, did I get it twisted?
Sam Watson?
Did I get it twisted? I did. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, Sam Watson was named chief of police.
Isn't he the one that sat on our committee for a while?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Well, he was really nice when I met him on National Night Out. And he's like, you have the boring neighborhood. The police never come out here for anything really crucial at all. You have the boring, nice neighborhood that I would want to live in. So
that's a good thing to hear.
Yeah, that is nice to hear.
Yeah.
That your part of town is a little bit like Mayberry.
It's so true, though.
It is. It's good.
I feel like I hear a lot of sirens because I'm just a couple blocks off Broadway.
Oh.
We don't necessarily have the cars here, but you can hear the sirens.
I used to live on Downing, that there was a lot of noise. Yeah. But on where I'm now on Washington, it's quiet. Just because I'm in between both of the hospitals. So the noise ordinances, they can't. Yeah. So they can't like blare their sirens or trucks can't go through. So it's like extra quiet.
Okay, Cara is trying to join. Maureen, she's going to reach out to you for a link. I know.
Okay. Hi, sorry.
That's okay.
Cara Frangipani just called me and asked Maureen if you could resend the link to her.
Sure. Yeah, she just sent a text.
Okay. I haven't been on Zoom in a while.
You know, I haven't either.
Nice. I just came out from the yard and
yeah, it's a little hot out there.
Ooh.
My garage said it was 99 degrees inside the garage. Oh. We'll give Cara a second. I was hoping that, excuse me, Robert would be able to join us, and then we have a new member. I was hoping she could join us too, but I don't see her on the call yet. I'll give Cara another minute. I just wanted to have her on when we did roll call.
Julie, I have a question. Is Robert still the alt, or has he been elevated to a permanent position?
I was going to talk about that, but he has been, he stepped into a permanent committee role.
So we have no alts?
We do. Let's wait until the meeting gets started. I want Cara to be on. And then I can give you all an update there. I was hoping to introduce her to everybody today.
I think Cara is speeding home from work and should be here momentarily.
Oh, okay. Let's go ahead and get started. I was thinking she was trying to get on right now.
Well, she was in her car on her. I mean, I think it was probably dangerous what she was doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm sure she'll hop on as soon as she gets
Got it. Okay. Got it. Okay. Well, thanks. So I'd like to welcome everybody and call this regular meeting of the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee this August 18th to order. And it's good to see everybody's faces again. I feel like it's been forever and it's only been 2 months. So it's good to see everyone now. If we can go ahead and take a roll call, Maureen, please. You're muted.
I'm sorry, who did you vote?
I'm sorry, but I was sending that to Kara, so
You're fine.
anything. Okay. Julie?
Here.
Member Dickerson?
Here.
Member Green?
Present.
Member Johnson?
Present.
Member Strom?
Here.
I know Member Frangipane's coming. And then we have Council Member Russell and Code Enforcement Manager Dave.
And then we have also Robert Watson and our new member, Tara Ann.
They're not here.
Right. Okay. So before we get started with our first agenda item, I wanted to fill you all in. We're once again at fully staffed. Chris Underwood did resign his position. He had some other priorities.
Julie?
Yes.
I just got an email from member Prohibited, and she says that she believes she's on audio, but she's muted. I don't show her on the list. Oh, she's come as an attendee. I'm going to allow her to talk.
Good.
And then I'm going to make her, let's see. Well, we'll leave her as she is. So she's now on the phone and she is allowed to talk.
Great, thank you.
I'm here. I'm here, muting again.
Hi, Tara. So hi, Tara, can you hear us?
Yeah, I've heard you the whole time. It just, I wasn't able to, I think I wasn't showing up. I've been on since like 5:55.
Oh, great. Okay, good. Well, we were just talking about the membership of the committee and that we're now fully staffed again. One member resigned and our alternate, Robert Watson, stepped up to be a full-time member. And then you were appointed to this committee and are now our alternate. So this is your first time meeting us and our first time meeting you. So I thought it would be helpful for us to go around the call and introduce ourselves to you. I'm Julie Bowden. I've been on the committee for, 5.5 years. I lived in Inglewood 6 years, and I'm actually term limited, and my appointment will be up in July of 2022. Colleen, would you like to introduce yourself? You're muted.
Yeah, I'm Colleen Dickerson, and likewise with Julie, I'll be term limited in 2022 in July because I fulfilled half of a term, and so that cut me out of one whole year, being 6 years. But I've been on here for quite a while, and Julie and I are the only ones that have been since 2017.
Sonia?
Hi, I'm Sonia Strom. I have been on the board for about a year, and I've lived in Inglewood for over 25 years now. Welcome.
Carson.
Hello, Carson Green. Been in Inglewood since 2000. Been on this board for like 2.5, 3 years about.
Thank you. Monica.
Hi, I'm Monica. I've been living in Inglewood for maybe 3 years. I don't even know. And I think I've been on the, I've been in Inglewood for like 3 or 4 years and on the committee for 1 or 2. Everything got blurred with COVID, but yeah.
Yeah, there's BC and AC. Cara.
Hi, I'm Cara. I've been on the committee for about a year, and I've been in Inglewood for about 3 years. So welcome.
Thank you. And Rita and Dave and Maureen, would you please introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Rita Russell. I'm a council member at large. I've been, actually have been on council 6 years, and I was appointed as, there were 2 liaisons when I first got on. And so the first year or two, I just kind of observed what things were going on from the other council member. So I love this committee. I've been living in Inglewood probably in excess of 55 years.
Oh my gosh.
I've been here quite a while, and I love this city, and I greatly appreciate all of you, and I appreciate your service to this committee and to the community. So thank you very much.
Maureen Willis, staff liaison, and I work in the city attorney's office. Welcome aboard.
Welcome. I'm Dave Lewis. I'm the codes manager. I'm approaching the beginning of my 6th year here in a couple months. And I look forward to setting an appointment and speaking with you in person a little bit more about how code enforcement works and what our role and responsibilities are in the city.
Thank you, everybody. Tara, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself and telling us how you came to be on the committee. Tara, can you hear us? You're on mute.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay. I think I'm having a little technical issue, but I've been in Inglewood only for a year now. I moved out here from Hollywood, California after I got COVID in March 2020 and needed to come to Colorado because I have family here and to get post-COVID care at National Jewish. So I ended up here accidentally and found out about the council opportunities accidentally. And here I am. I love it. I didn't plan to stay here, but now I am staying and I like it quite a bit. So any way I can be of service, just let me know.
Great. And I'm sorry to hear how your trail occurred. That's incredible. But boy, National Jewish is a great place to land. So it's wonderful to have you on the committee, Tara. We're at the tail end of making a recommendation to City Council on tree and shrub code. So there's been a lot of material flying around the past year. I've sent you a lot of that. So if you have any questions, please let us know and we'll do our best to answer that. And then any ideas or suggestions you have, we're welcome to, new views, points of view, especially from someone that's lived someplace else. So with that, we will go ahead and move to our 3rd agenda item, which is approval of our minutes from the June 16th meeting. Would someone please move to approve?
I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Carson. A second? Colleen, appreciate that. Are there any corrections or discussions? Colleen?
I have a question. For one, I think we need to add that you canceled the July meeting during the June meeting, and because that's not on there. And then I have a question about the explanation of why the special meeting was canceled. When I got the email canceling it, it was because the vice chair, Carson, could not get the documents to be posted on time. It had nothing to do with whether you could attend the meeting or not. We knew you wouldn't be there because you told us you wouldn't be. So
the way I understand it is it had to come from me, and I was not able to review the documents. I was driving. So I think that's actually more the reason why. Maureen, do you have a recollection on that? Because I believe you were the ones that filled us in on that.
That was the reason why.
Okay, yeah.
The reason why was that Member Green didn't feel comfortable doing everything because he wasn't able to get a hold of you.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, during our last meeting at the end, Member Johnson had you on the phone and Chair Bowden, and you said that we could go forward with that. And so I went through what I heard through her, you agreed to, but I wasn't going to finalize it without getting your approval. and I couldn't get a response from you, I guess, because you were traveling and in time for Ms. Willis to post it. So then that's why I didn't want to point any fingers or anything. I just said we couldn't get it. We couldn't get it posted because we needed to get that approval and we couldn't get it.
Okay. Is there any other correct? Oh, Colleen?
Yeah, I have a follow-up question then. My understanding is we have a vice chair in case the chair is not available. So it could have come from the chair, but that's all right. I don't, I just wanted clarification on that because the email only said I couldn't get it posted in time. That's the only thing I knew.
Okay. Are there any further correction or discussions? So the amendment is that we voted to not have a July meeting because so many people were going to be out of town. And there's no further amendments, correct, Colleen? Is that right? Okay, great. So is there a motion and a second to approve the minutes as amended, please?
Yeah, I accept that friendly amendment on the original motion.
Okay.
I second it.
Thank you very much. So please vote by a show of hands your approval of the minutes as amended. Ooh, can't see my hand. Cara, we can't see you. There you are, great. That looks unanimous. And Tara, just so you know, as an alternate, you vote only when we have actually, if we don't have a member, since Robert's not on the call, can Tara vote today?
She can.
Great. Well, actually, since Tara wasn't here, she can't vote. Never mind. You have to be present at the meeting to vote on the minutes. So, okay, the minutes as amended are approved. The next item on the agenda is the public forum. Normally I read a statement, but I want to hear if there's anybody on the call from the public. Maureen?
Chair Bowden, there are no attendees.
Great, thank you. I did have a question to the committee members. There was a presentation to City Council on August 2nd by a Mr. Jerry Walker. He was talking about a situation that he had with his alleys. And he mentioned that he had been in contact with the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee, but no one had responded. And I wanted to hear if anybody on this committee had been contacted by Jerry regarding his alley issue. Okay.
Is it possible that he sent an email to the city to come to us and we didn't get it?
I don't know.
Can I just respond to that? I think that perhaps Jerry was saying that he contacted code enforcement. I don't think that he said the committee.
He said code enforcement and the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee.
Okay.
I listened to the tape.
Okay.
And it caught my ear because I had not been contacted, and I know Jerry and felt like he would have reached out to either you or Colleen or myself if he had a question. So, all right. I just wanted to check and see if there was anyone that had heard from them.
I have not received anything from Mr. Walker.
Okay. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we'd like to recognize our representative from the Code Enforcement Supervisor or Code Manager, Dave Lewis.
Hey all, how's it going? It's nice to see you all again after that break. So just a few updates. As you all know, that the city is has a new police chief. The police chief, and you're all invited, by the way, on Monday, on this Friday from 9 to 11 a.m. is the going away function for Chief Collins here at the police department. There'll be some light breakfast and beverages and stuff, and it's an opportunity to network and mingle with some of the city council members, as well as some of the business owners and some of those that have worked with Chief Collins over the last multiple years of his. He's been in law enforcement 43 years, I believe. And so it's an opportunity to just say thank you and say goodbye to him. So you're all invited this Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. here at the police department. Sam Watson is taking over. We have an amazing relationship here at the police department, and Sam, Chief Watson, is moving into a role and isn't anticipating on making too many major changes. He has been a past supervisor for the code enforcement division, so he's very familiar with the intricacies and complications that come with code enforcement and the passions of our community. And he'll continue to look at what code enforcement is doing and potentially looking at some future changes and additions to the code enforcement department. The budget has been moving forward, and at this time, the code enforcement department has not added any additional supplemental items that I'm aware of to the budget, and we're not requesting any additional staff this year. As you all know, there was a concern regarding our water. I think it's very well known. I think from my standpoint as an employee and someone who, I want to let you all know that the Code Enforcement Division did step forward and did participate to try and help our community. Many of us stayed late nights to answer phone calls, assist with water distribution, and be available to the citizens as they needed. Code enforcement was very instrumental at the beginning in trying to get items that we needed here for the emergency command center, as well as being available to our community. I want to say that the Code Enforcement Division answered over 600 calls within a one or 2 day period. So I'm very grateful to the team that volunteered to step forward and help with that. As you all know, we do have a seasonal code officer that's been out doing weed, overgrowth, and alley inspections. I'm very pleased to report to all of you that approximately slightly over half of the city has been done now with the alleys, and we have issued close to 700 notices of violation. So we're roughly at about, so we've inspected a little over 4,000 properties at this time. So we're looking at about a 16 to 17% violation rate with our grass weeds notices, particularly within our alleyways. So we're really working with our residents to try and get those corrected. We are going to be holding interviews, internal interviews here with the Code Enforcement Division this week to identify a master code enforcement officer. This isn't an extra expense to the budget, but we are needing somebody to help supplement when a supervisor isn't available, especially now that we're 7 days a week. So some of those major concerns, approving of reports and taking care of the day-to-day business so that we make sure that we're really meeting the customer service needs of the community. And so that testing process is happening this week, and there will be a master code officer that would be decided upon by the chief of police.
Those primarily internal candidates?
It can only be internal candidates.
Got it.
Yes. It's similar to what we do for our master police officer position. They're usually officers that have extra responsibilities around training new officers, handling some supervisory roles when a supervisor isn't available or tied up. And so it's very similar to that position. So it's an internal kind of role to expand how we offer our services to the community. We've currently identified a candidate for the park ranger position, and so we're finishing up that testing process as well.
That's great to hear.
Want to provide some feedback at this time to Monica and your communications subcommittee. I do need to get with Monica, but the communications team has been complimentary towards the activities that this committee is doing and the amazing work that you've done to collaborate with them and promote a positive environment regarding code enforcement and the role of code enforcement. So we've seen some amazing posts within our community. Most of them have been very positive. We're trending at about a 90% positivity rate where people are really standing up for code enforcement, understand the role of code enforcement, and are really trying to help their neighbors regarding code enforcement. one of the other things that we're working on is with the court systems and possibly alternate sentencing. And so although we don't send a lot of cases forward to the municipal courts, because the code enforcement division really does go out of its way to work with our community members that are in violation to come into compliance. When we do, we are looking primarily at animal related concerns, sending those forward so that there is some more accountability for the harmed party, as well as the person that may have caused the harm to have some more closure. So we're looking at exploring that option as well. And so I'm very excited about that process moving forward. And that is all of my updates.
Question for Code Manager Lewis.
Yes.
Colleen, you had your hand raised first.
I just wanted to know who is the supervisor in code enforcement now?
I am the manager of code enforcement. I'm taking the role of the executive position.
So there's no supervisor under you?
No, that would be the role of the master code officer.
Okay.
But they would not be a day-to-day supervisor. This would be on a case-by-case situation, possibly on weekends as well, or days that I'm not working or if I'm attending a meeting.
Okay. Carson?
Code Manager Lewis, I just wanted to give you guys credit for dealing with the mountain lion. That had to be quite an experience. Did you personally wrestle it?
That was, I'm glad you brought that up. I did not put that on my notes. That happened right before I went on this 3-week European sabbatical. I have to tell you that these are the stories that you read about and you're like, this will never happen in Inglewood. It happened. And this poor kitty cat, I think it was more scared than the owners of the home. And so I'm really proud that the animal was able to be put back into an area where it could be basically live a more effective life. It was younger, probably 2 years old, it's a female, so it may have been separated from its family recently. Females tend to stay together. And we believe it came into Inglewood. It had been sighted in the Cherry Creek area. It was sighted potentially in parts of Lone Tree and Centennial. So we think it was coming up to the green belts in the river area. And we really believe that it was lost. It wasn't really causing any harm in our city. So I have to tell you, being two of the first people that were on scene, and I have to hand it to Code Officer Ball. He was the first person that was on scene to deal with this and work with the community, make sure people were safe. But I think the biggest joy is just seeing this great creature up close. Once it was tranquilized, being able to touch an animal that's so majestic and so amazing for our ecosystem and the role that it plays. I've never been that close to that type of an animal, and it was just exhilarating. Thank you. That's definitely a lifetime opportunity this is one of the reasons that I love doing my job, working with citizens and really working with the animals that are in need out there. And this was one of them, and it was exhilarating. Thanks.
So did Fish and Game relocate it?
So we cannot tranquilize animals here. Not even the police officer only has the authority to euthanize it if it's sick or injured. So they came out and tranquilized it. They brought the equipment. Code Officer Ball actually knew more about how to handle a mountain lion than one of the newer Department of Wildlife, because it was their first time. And so he was able to, he crawled right underneath the desk, put our ropes on him and dragged the cat out himself. So it was, if you would have seen this little intimate, all of us there working in this small space underneath this deck, you would have been like, oh my goodness, this is some straight up television. We needed to be on one of those reality TV, Alaska, Texas wildlife shows.
What did it weigh?
We don't know. We didn't get to weigh it, but I definitely would say it was probably close to maybe 115, 120 pounds. So it did take 4 of us of dead weight when it was tranquilized. So it took 4 of us to carry it, and carrying the back end of a mountain lion is something I never said I would ever do.
Do you have any idea where they relocated it to?
I do. For safety reasons, I'm not able to say, other than it was relocated to an area in Douglas County where it would be able to find a mate and food and be successful.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for telling us about it.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking. And on that note, we've had a marmot, a mountain lion, a couple of elk, a couple of deer in the last month. So we're seeing an unusual amount of big game animals. And I think this is having to do with lack of food, overabundance, not enough predators. And so this was where they lived once before, and they're just roaming back into our areas. And we're really trying to make sure that they stay safe and get back to where they are less inclined to be hit by vehicles or harmed by humans.
Further questions for Code Manager Lewis? I had a question. How is the code reporting system coming along?
So we've attended a class, and we've identified, and this isn't just for us, this is also for the police department. The RMS system is a bit complicated to get accurate information. So we attended a class last week, and we should hopefully have some reports that we can generate and build for the next meeting. I just want to make sure that we're not duplicating things. We still have to hand count a few things just to make sure that the system's accurate, and we'll be able to provide the last couple of months for you. I can tell you, since we have started the new system since May 1st, up until today, we've generated 1,600 reports, not counting anything that the weeds or seasonal person has done. So that's strictly code enforcement and animal related reports. So we've been very busy.
Okay. Along the lines of the animal related, we went through a significant amount of effort to update the animal code for the impounding, the ability to impound animals other than dogs and cats that have been mistreated. Has that been brought up, or have you tapped into that since that was enacted?
We have. We in fact have, we identified a livestock animal, and we have utilized that provision that has been moved forward. So yes, we have already utilized that. So it has been a tremendous help just with this one case so far.
Good to hear. So it went through court and you didn't get in trouble with the judge?
We did not.
That's good to hear. Okay, good. Colleen, did you have your hand raised?
Well, yes, I just came up with another question though, because you got the question I wanted to ask. Why weren't you able to take care of the livestock, because livestock are prohibited?
We previously were not. So we couldn't impound under the old ordinance of livestock. We actually had to go through court. And that was the whole reason that you guys changed the ordinance to allow us to impound those animals before we'd have to actually get a court order and issue a summons. So in this case, we are able to impound the animal because it is outright prohibited.
So you didn't get it for being livestock, you got it for neglect or cruelty or?
The animal, we had some other case issues with it, but it also because it's outright prohibited.
Further questions for Code Manager Lewis? I had another question. I periodically go out and look at the city council requests and notice that there had been a lot of city council requests regarding code enforcement. Is there something going on with code enforcement and the amount of council requests that have come through? I mean, things like how this one is about was how the mitigation process works through the court. Another one was statistics on number of dangerous animals, that type of thing. Are they related?
No, council requests, and I think Councilmember Russell may be able to articulate best. Council requests are driven by a need of information by the community. And so a council member may have received a concern that they may want to relay on the record to all of council and the community. And so these are really the most effective way for council to obtain that information through the city manager's office. And so we usually will put that information together. And it's really used as a fact gathering opportunity, but also an information gathering opportunity, so that the community is aware of not just a particular incident, but maybe the policy or how the city is operating. And it allows city council and other staff to make better informed decisions about certain actions, policies, or activities. So I like having council requests. I like having the information put forward, and so that we don't hide anything here. We're an open, transparent book, and so I'm more than welcome to complete any council request that comes forward. And most of those that are code related really do come to my desk, and I draft them and forward them to the chief.
Well, it's very interesting. If the rest of the committee hasn't had a chance, if you go out to the city council page, you can look at city council requests and the reports that come in. And there was one on the number of dangerous dogs over the past year and a half, dangerous dog reports. I think there was another one on alley maintenance and what happens with trash or, junk that has been discarded, not by the homeowner. Right. Thing. So it's interesting information and a good resource for the committee too on some of those data. Thanks for bringing
that up. And I don't know if Councilmember Russell wants to add to anything that I said.
I appreciate your characterization of that. I believe that's absolutely correct. And it is always helpful information. I appreciate all that code does, and especially you. I have a question, and this is more about the RMS system. Will it make some of that information easier for you to gather once it's fully implemented?
So that is a great question to move forward. This last week, several of us were involved in some GIS committee meetings. We are expanding our GIS system so that this information will be globally available to all of our citizens. So it will be readily available as part of our new website. And this is part of our strategic plan moving forward in being transparent and communicating that information to the public. So that would be the easiest way that information will be available.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I mean, the only other thing that I vaguely remember, one of the biggest things on the agenda, probably especially in the last 6 months, but maybe even the last year, is all the emails council's been getting on the off-leash dog parks and all the questions that we get about encounters in the park. So I think there were a lot of questions around those particular requests. So that's the biggest thing that I remember. But I appreciate what you do, Manager Lewis.
Thank you.
Further questions for Manager Lewis? If not, we'll go ahead and move forward with agenda item number 6. The chair recognizes our City Council Liaison, Rita Russell, for any information updates from City Council.
Thank you very much. So I have missed you all, and actually it's great to see you all again. I'm hoping that one day soon we will be able to be back in person together. The City Council has asked the city attorney to move forward with allowing and I don't think this has come forward yet. I think she's looking into it. The council actually is doing hybrid meetings where most of the council members are coming, but sometimes if the council member can't come or whatever, they can be on Zoom. But we've asked the city attorney to look into establishing rules where we could have hybrid or we can't. And it's really up to the comfort level of the committee, whether you want to meet in person also. But it's been really good for me to be back in person. I enjoy seeing you all on Zoom, but it's different when you're in person. So anyway, there's that. And I am pretty sure Sam Watson will become the new chief of police on Friday. He will be sworn in at City Hall on Friday at 12:30 in the afternoon. And it is open to the public because the city manager was talking about it. Normally they do it in the courtroom. They may do it in the foyer of City Hall because the judge generally swears in the chief of police. And so that's why it is there. So that would be available if you're interested in that. I also want to thank staff and code also for all the work they did on the when we had the water quality issue. And fortunately, it was isolated to one home, and there have been some changes to the way we will be testing water. Originally, they were testing only 24 sites around the city. Our home happened to be one of the sites. They come once a month, check the water. And I don't know where this home was, but when they checked it, there was a problem. And so they have to check it again 24 hours later. And when it tested positive, that's when they issued the boil water order. They had checked both side properties. There was no problem there. So, and one thing I think that City Council is looking at is approving hiring another person, mostly to just inspect all the water meters across the city, just to make sure. The problem was at the water meter. When they opened the water meter pit, there was a leak. And so the city replaced the water meter and then flushed the system, and then the problem was clear. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that all of staff got on top of this, because water quality is one of the most important things we take for granted in the city. And so I'm very thankful for staff and all the hard work that they did to accomplish that. I think that's all I have right now. So, but thank you.
Questions for City Council Member Rita? Of course, you know I have one.
Good. Always keep it on.
So I was reading your agenda packet from your meeting this week that was 709 pages, and bless you guys for getting through all that, but it was regarding the budget. And there were two items on the budget that really caught my eye. And one was a position for assistant city forester, and the other thing that caught my eye was a budget for EAB mitigation in the amount of $50,000, which I thought both of those were a really good sign and an evidence of the hard work that Dave Lee has put into making sure that the city council is aware of the issue. Do you think those two will go through?
Yes, those will go through. And I am very excited. A lot of times, I think that they've had $50,000 in the budget for EAB, but a lot of times it was just a placeholder. I do believe that they will be mostly identifying diseased and damaged trees. EAB is not here yet, but Parks and Rec is trying to identify trees and remove trees. And then, yes, I do believe the assistant forester is going to go through. And I meant to ask that question because I do believe Dave Lee is an arborist. And so I don't know, it would be an assistant to him, I'm assuming.
So he would be our city forester?
Well, and see, that's what, I didn't ask that question because I thought about it. I appreciate that. He may be still operating in the role that he is, but also doing that. I don't know. I would need to ask that question. So anyway, that's all that I know. I can ask those questions though, so.
So do you think the EAB mitigation budget is primarily for city-owned trees?
Yes, but also they're doing some things to help citizens. I mean, I think they're working on that also. Okay. So, I mean, they did bring that up. I think more of it at this point in time is maybe to start identifying how they can be of help to citizens, and probably some communication around that also, which ties into what you all are doing.
Right, right. Thank you, Rita. Further questions for Rita? All right. Oh, Dave. Sorry, I didn't see your hand.
I don't have a question for Councilmember Russell, but I forgot one thing that was on my list. Celebrate Inglewood is also coming up on August 28th. It's starting at 9:45 in the morning till 11. It's here at the police department. We're really celebrating the success of the police department. We're going to have a lot of different activities and interactions. Every single department's going to have a tent to be available to the community. We're also going to have some demonstrations. We've secured, an amazing organization has come forward and donated 50 bikes for children in need in the community. And also Swedish Hospital has donated 50 helmets for those children. We're also going to have several large trucks and vehicles that the community members can come in and children particularly and play on and see some of the tractors and things that we use here within the city of Inglewood. I'm really excited that our steamroller is going to be here, and there's an art project for kids where they'll be able to do some printing, and then the steamroller is going to press out those prints. And we're still deciding if that's going to be an individual thing or if we're going to bring those back into the city of Inglewood somehow. Code enforcement is going to be there, as well as the Humane Society. We're going to have an adoption fair as well as a low-cost vaccination clinic at the same time. We're expecting anywhere from 200 to 300 people to participate that day. We're also doing something a little new. We've heard some feedback from some of our citizens. And so from 9:45 to 10:15, we're having a sensory time so that kiddos and families that have sensory concerns or autism concerns can come and not have the loud blaring music and concerts, and can also have an opportunity to engage and feel and touch and see these items within the city. And so that's one of the things that we've been working on expanding here in the city, is access for our citizens that may have some disabilities or some children that do have. We started a new Easter thing a couple of years ago where we had an area for sensory processing concerns. So it's something that the city is really taking an interest in, and we've partnered with Developmental Pathways. They provide all of the disability services for our kiddos here within the Arapahoe County area.
Monica?
I think that's awesome. And I think it just goes to show that you can be thoughtful and accommodate more people. And it's not always a huge expensive endeavor. I just love the thoughtfulness that goes into everything you do, Manager Lewis. Thank you.
Maureen, you have your hand raised.
Yes, I thought that celebration was going to be from 9:45 to 2 p.m. And Dave, you said 11 a.m.?
Yeah, so the sensory component is going to be from 9:45 to 10:15. At 10:30, we will have the honor guard come forward, and we'll have one of our officers sing the national anthem. And there'll be a few, Manager Lewis, the police chief, and a few other guests will be speaking that day. And then it only goes until 11 is my understanding. Maybe I read the flyer incorrectly. I'll have to double check. I apologize. I can't reach that now.
Because I attended the meeting, I think last week, and they said 2 p.m.
You are correct. It is 2 p.m.
Okay.
And that was to accommodate, we're going to be allowing citizens to sign up and take tours of the police department. So it really is an interactive opportunity for you all to come down, and you can take a tour. You're all invited anytime. I have an open door policy. Set a meeting with me. I'm happy to give you a tour while we can. Hopefully we don't go backwards in the COVID stuff. I'm happy to meet with you, talk about code enforcement one-on-one, give you a tour of the police department if you've never had one. We're doing some amazing things, and I'm very excited about what we're doing here at the police department.
Dave, is this a replacement for what used to be the Inglewood block party, where people, we had tents up and?
We are doing the block party, and that's going to be next month on the 18th.
Okay.
It's not a function that falls within the police department. It
Right.
really is an events
Right.
function. And if you guys want to participate, I don't know if they're inviting groups this year or if it's just going to be more of a vendor opportunity. But you can always reach out to Tony or me, and I can forward your information if you're interested. But again, I don't believe city departments are going to be represented at the block party.
Okay. Great. So going back to Rita, were there any further questions for Rita? No? Then we will move forward with agenda item number 7, the communications subcommittee. Oh, sorry, Colleen, I see your hand is raised now. You're on mute.
I don't know that Rita can actually answer this, and I think she's already told us everything she can. But before I even knew about the issue, I did get sick, and it was diagnosed as an E. coli infection. And I have filtered water, and I have reverse osmosis. And I got sick a second time after they said they repealed the boil order. And I know a couple of other people in my neighborhood have reported being sick. It may just be a coincidence, but it sure did seem like it came from our water. I even stopped drinking water, and then I felt fine until I started drinking the water again.
You were going to say you got sick with COVID.
No.
I'm a little relieved.
No, that I didn't get. Just a terrible sinus infection from all the, I think you can hear some of the hoarseness. It's starting to go away a little bit, but
so
yes.
Colleen, not as far as I know, there were no complaints. And so were you actually diagnosed with E. coli?
Yeah.
I mean, that might be interesting for you to, and I'll ask where to turn that in because we didn't have complaints, but that doesn't mean there weren't any. So, and I have no idea where the subject property was. So anyway, okay.
Yeah, it wasn't just me. That's the only reason. I just thought it was me, but I'd never had an experience like that before. And
was it more people in your neighborhood? Were all the people
pretty close? Yeah, some of them are, across Logan. But some of the people I would have thought, some really immune compromised people haven't had a problem either with COVID or E. coli or colds or sinus infections or anything.
Right. It could have been just a coincidence, but all I can say is there were no reports of any problems. So, and even the person that lived in the house did not have a problem. So,
well,
so
that's good to know. Must just have been a coincidence.
Well, it could be. So, all right. Thank you, Colleen.
Thank you.
Along those lines, Rita, I really appreciate the city offering to reimburse us for the cost of the water filter. I think most of us do live within Zone 1. So if you didn't know, if you did purchase a new water filter or filters, you can submit the bill to the water department and they'll take that off your next water bill. I thought that was very generous. So thank you. All right, Miss Monica.
Well, hello. We are moving the ball forward in communications. I want to give credit to Vanessa Davis. She's really the engine of everything. She's on board with making the message positive. It was great to hear Manager Lewis say that we're creating a positive feedback loop. And we just recently had a meeting and outlined some major priorities from the communications plan. And so Ms. Davis is going to be posting monthly on social media and trying to keep those topics, timely. So, snow and ice will be coming up. And of course, in the spring, we'll be talking about mitigating your weeds early, like making an alley plan, of course, reminding people about EAB. And I also want to say that it's been wonderful to work with the copywriters at Slate on our articles. They, it's not been a big fight to get our content in, and they are just very good at consolidating the material that we're submitting. So in our next magazine, we're gonna just replicate what we put in last year about the snow ordinance and snow buddies. And that'll be a quarter page. And then we'll try to get a half or full page article. And I think we're going to stay on trend with positive messaging and letting people know what a vital service code enforcement provides to the city and how they fit in there. So, Julie, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't know if the rest of the committee follows the social media account for the city of Inglewood, but the communications department has been regularly posting material regarding code. I think the latest one was on alleys, and it's been engaging and very positive. And Vanessa's positive personality and really shines through. So if you haven't been following it, please do, because they've really taken it a step up especially for code. And to understand code and make it a priority with communications. It's kind of more like they're running the show now, whereas before we used to ask for help and ask for space and try to get the attention of the communications department, and they're now coming to us to create a yearly calendar of what to talk about, and they're already looking at that. It's really moving forward quite well. I've been really impressed with that team. The other thing I noticed about the post, the communications department is responding to questions on like Instagram. So when they posted the image of the alley and reminding people that they had to maintain the alley and with removing weeds and such, there was a response of, forget the alleys, just get us clean water. And she responded to that and said, I don't remember how she positioned it, but she put a nice spin on it that kind of turned it back around. So I really appreciate your leadership with them, Monica, and the direction, and obviously Code Manager Lewis and the direction they're taking it.
Yeah, on that note, one of the things we talked about along the way, and Manager Lewis, this is more directed towards you, but we talked about block captains and grants for alley cleanup and how to move that idea forward. And I feel like that's kind of just been out there in the ether. And we talked about the neighborhood, I can't remember her name, but there's a person that does community involvement basically at the city.
We're still evaluating and working forward with that and sources of funding. So yes,
great.
It is still on the agenda.
Awesome. And when it comes to pass, we'll communicate it.
Did we reach agreement on what the upcoming communication topics are going to be on? Or the one, I guess you just mentioned it, snow and ice.
Snow and ice is the like seasonal reminder. It seems to be becoming a regular thing that we get a little kind of seasonal reminder section. Yeah. And then and it's been EAB, but this winter it's going to be snow and ice. Yeah, so I don't really have a specific article topic as of right now. So if anybody has a good topic that we can do for that half page piece. I thought the one last quarter was pretty good. But I really think that we need to fulfill our role in like educating the public, helping them understand that what code enforcement provides for them and how they power that machine with their involvement. So if anybody disagrees with that or has another idea, please let me or Julie know. And, you know, I don't know if anybody off like right now has any objection to that theme, but I think that, you know, we should be pointing positive whenever possible. That's all I have.
Thank you, Monica. Further questions for Monica? Okay, so moving forward to new business, the floor is now open for any motions with regards to new business on our agenda. Okay, seeing none, then we will move forward to unfinished business, starting with the proposed memo to send to the city council, our city council liaison regarding changes to tree and shrub code. Carson, can I put you on the spot and have you walk us through the proposed letter?
Sure. I mean, it's really just a summary of what we came up with when in last couple of months ago meeting. Not sure. I mean, like it's, I mean, basically the bullets are broken into the things that we considered, which was intended to be kind of like the goals and the things that we thought we needed to, that might need addressing. And then we did all of the discussion we did. And then the bottom part is the areas that we actually thought should have changes and high level what those should be. And then, you know, the closing was just saying, this is our recommendation to consider. But, you know, being open that we're not trying to say exactly what the language should be in the code, but these are the places that we've identified could benefit the city by having the modifications done and what they should cover. I don't know. I mean, did you want more specific than that?
No, I think that's good. And when I got confused when I first read it, because I thought the first section that's titled high level summary of the things we considered was really the list of the key issues that we identified that we needed to address for residents. And it was kind of like the overview, right? And so
it's just some of those things we decided that it didn't make sense to do anything with, but
right,
they're included in there because they were things that we considered and talked about.
Right. So like the first one where it says no change necessary, that means we considered or we identified that there was a need for the city to be able to enter private property without a warrant to inspect trees. Does that mean that we're not recommending change to that?
Yeah, that was the outcome of all of our discussion.
Okay, that's how I read it. Okay. Colleen, you had your hand raised?
I'll wait, never mind.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I just made it was from the overall document that you had, I basically just combined it all into the things we discussed and whether we, a few of them we determined, in our discussion that there wasn't necessarily a need for anything to change in the code, or that the other things that we do recommend cover it well enough. And then the specifics that we recommended to actually change is that second list, the summary of areas where we recommend.
I thought that was a good summary. Okay, you kind of have your hand raised, Colleen. Your green hand.
I thought we had discussed putting no change necessary for a few of the others. And one of them was enforce use of arborists. That's a Title V issue. And Dave Lee has already told us how that worked and that it was sufficient because we already have a list. Everybody who does tree services is required to get a license. And if they are already licensed in Denver, Aurora, Lakewood, and Colorado Springs, it's easier for them to be licensed. And he says they're automatically licensed as a result. So I thought that that could have said no change necessary here also.
Okay. Further comments or questions regarding this proposed letter to City Council? I see Coeen's hand raised. How come it's not green? How come you went back to the, sorry.
I actually, because I had gotten kind of ill and I had problems with my electricity and my house was falling apart, I didn't notice that that had come 3 weeks ago. And so I was a little bit delayed in assessing this. And I sent an email to you and Carson with my thoughts. And I thought I could, summarize them. I put them in writing so I could be, oh, shoot, I've lost it now.
The email that you sent us?
Yeah, with my thoughts about formatting and just a couple little changes. We are, it's easier for me if I can read it, and I don't know what happened to my, oh, there it is, never mind.
I think for the benefit of the rest of the committee members, I think it's a good idea for you to just go ahead and read it for everyone.
Okay, I said, below, please find my comments for revision of the memo, which I intend to present tonight. In reviewing our duties and responsibilities and the process for our recommendations, I have made some suggestions for clarity, consistency, and tone. I reviewed our enabling legislation and the recommendations and procedure for the successful ice and snow revision that we got passed and that we had presented to council on January of 2019. In all, I agree with the memo, but it could be clearer and more concise and in accordance with our responsibilities and process. A couple of edits we discussed did not make it into the recommendations or the high-level considerations that led to the recommendations. We should also use the more professional formatting of the memo form. Per our enabling legislation, our primary duty and responsibility is to comprehensively review codes under our purview, in this case, tree and shrubs, and recommend changes and submit them to the council in the most direct and clear way possible, keeping in mind our oath to protect and serve the Constitution and what is most beneficial to citizens' welfare, health, and respectful of their rights. To these ends, I recommend the following changes to the memo. A more formal and professional memo presentation to read. 2, Rita Russell, Council Member Liaison to the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee from Code Enforcement Advisory Committee. Date, August 18th, 2021. Subject, please forward the following memo with our recommendations to City Council. To City Council. Date, same, from Code Enforcement Advisory Committee. Subject, recommendations for revisions to EMC 11-5 tree and shrubs, approved by vote of the committee. And that should be underlined. The first sentence of the memo is therefore unneeded because our job is to make recommendations directly to council through our liaison. And we've already put that in the subject matter. Secondly, I think it's important that we acknowledge the valuable contribution of Code Manager Lewis when he stated and confirmed the obligation of code enforcement to protect private property rights. And he endorsed the consistency and enforcement by utilizing the process outlined in Title 15 as we recommended. and Open Space Manager Dave Lee for his desire and intention to have the Urban Forestry Department, by whatever name, restored and budgeted for 2022, as well as his contribution that Title V is sufficient for enforcement of the arborist requirement, which can be done. We could put it in parentheses, or we could put it on the high level by the codes that they noted this at, like enforce arborist requirement. Dave Lee said that's done in Title V and it's sufficient. We don't need to deal with that. And I would replace the final two paragraphs about stated goals and requests for attorney edits. It was very confusing when you said focused on accomplishing our stated goals, but there's nothing there that says what our stated goals are. And I think it should be easiest at just a simple statement. The Code Enforcement Advisory Committee respectfully submits these recommendations for your approval. The city attorney will be charged with working with us on legal language after the council has considered our recommendations. We don't need to confuse it by saying, well, we're not wedded to this or that or the other thing. That's a given. We're not writing code. We're just making recommendations. And then you close with signed by Julie Bowden, chair of the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee. For clarity and to avoid confusions, under the high level of considerations, well, we've already discussed it, but I said I would recommend we state no change needed beside enforce use of arborist. That's in Title V and clearly stated there and confirmed by Open Space Manager Dave Lee that we don't need to make any changes there. Under recommendations 5-5-3, I would add a little more to the purpose. For instance, protect public trees, encourage and assist property owners in planting and maintaining trees. Under 11-5-8, I would remove the third and fourth bullet points and add them to things we considered, because they would be covered under our other recommendations and are covered under the process outlined in Title 15 that we are recommending and are best redundant. And then the final thing is, and I didn't put that in the memo, I just noted it, there's a duplication of the recommendation under 11-5-8. The first one talks about the prohibited trees. And then the very last one says prohibited tree, make the prohibited trees, one or the other, but not both.
Okay, questions for Colleen on what she's proposing? There's a lot there. And I haven't had a chance to study that, Colleen, so I don't have a response at this time. Do
you want to take them one at a time? I mean, the heading should be a no-brainer. It should be we should be acting professionally. And I think it's a little too like saying, hello, City Council. That's, it's our job to make recommendations. I think it's just a simple matter of just, we're submitting the recommendations.
I'm fine with that. And I'll actually tap into Maureen's assistance for that, but I think those are easy changes to make. One thing I would also like to recommend is, and oh, by the way, I think your suggestion that we acknowledge the contributions of Code Manager Lewis and Dave Lee and their role in helping us get to this point I think that's a great idea. So thank you for thinking of that. Is the high-level summary of the things we considered, that I would recommend changing that to be, we evaluated what the needs of the community were in terms of assisting residents and setting the framework for code enforcement. And I'd like to change that title because I got confused when I read this. I wasn't sure if that title meant that these were the things we were requesting be changed, or these were the things that we looked at, which I like including. I just would like to have a different title there.
Well, I don't blame you. I didn't want to mess with that, but I found that a little confusing, the fact that it's high level. We just considered it. And I think it's okay to tell them that we considered all these things, but I think more of it should be no change required to that enforce the Arbus rule, because it's already set up to be enforced. It's in Title V, and we don't need to duplicate that in our code. It's never been duplicated in the code before. So that would be my only change. And, under that, things we considered in order to make our recommendations. And I
like the way we referred to that, was that these were the key issues that we identified were needed for code to move forward to protect residents, the city, and trees, and showing them that these were the things that we considered. And then based off those considerations, here's the recommended code changes. Here are the recommendations, we have for code changes to be made. Is everyone okay with that change? Change the title of that paragraph titled high level summary. Maureen?
If you do the substantive changes to the memo, I'm happy to do the formatting.
Okay.
So whatever you change inside that memo that changes its intent, go ahead and do. I can format it and make it look professional. That is my job.
Thank you. I was counting on that. So that's it. So are we okay to retitle that, key considerations or something along those lines for that paragraph?
I think key considerations is okay.
Okay. And then we can note that, hey, we identified this as a key issue, but upon evaluation, there's nothing that needs to be changed here. So in terms of the areas where we recommend code changes, what were the specific ones that you identified?
Basically, I just wanted to flesh out the purpose, not just to protect the importance of the tree canopy, but the fact is that we want to encourage homeowners, private homeowners or property owners to plant trees and assist them in maintenance and removal. Because
so that's under 11-5-3.
Yes, I just wanted to add to that.
So what did you want to add?
I wanted to flesh out the purpose, not just the importance of the tree canopy, but the rest of it.
That's fine. And remember, we're not writing this, we're giving the basic content.
Yeah, we're just giving them some ideas, and it's not a code, but it's important that we do that because what Code Manager Lewis told us, and I believe it is constitutionally valid, he's obligated to protect private property rights. So all the other things we're saying to them, we got to clarify this. But in this case, we want to emphasize that we want to encourage citizens to maintain their trees and plant new ones. There are a lot of properties in Inglewood that refuse to have trees. But so I just wanted, just briefly, our purpose shouldn't be just the importance of the tree canopy, but it should reinforce what Dave Lee is getting through.
Okay. And the second area that you had a change to was under 11-5-8.
Yeah, the third, I think it was the third and fourth bullet points. Those were things we considered, but they're actually incorporated into Title 15 if we use that process. So that's something, I think that should have been moved. That should be moved to things we considered, not a recommendation. Because it's a little too specific.
Okay, I'm fine with that. Does anyone else have a issue with making that change? Dave, you have your hand raised.
I'm still confused as to bullet point number 2 that you're moving forward. Is that the one?
No, it's 3. What did I say?
The third bullet point.
Yeah, I think it was the third and fourth bullet points about making enforcement personnel obligated to remove dangerous trees.
I thought those were among the things that Code Manager Lewis told us did need to be in there, but
no, he didn't mention that. He endorsed the idea of a consistent enforcement policy, and he thought it was a good idea to just say the enforcement shall be under Title 15. Say that, yeah, the process that's outlined in Title 15 will be the process for this code.
Okay. I want to just give 2 comments. I think you guys are getting really bogged down in some minutia kind of things that really need to be flushed out through the city attorney's office.
But that's my point. That's something to consider if we just make the recommendation as it was made, that it's up to the city attorney to make the legal language.
Okay. I just want to be very consistent with the way that our language is written, that it's very important that we stay away from finite conversations about shall versus may.
I agree. That's why we're just making notes, and that the bullet point 3 and 4, I actually wrote those as a recommendation, but 3 years ago, and it was for a very specific set of circumstances that are no longer valid. And so it's something to consider, but we've come up with a different set of recommendations that would incorporate that because it's in the process that we're recommending. It's just, I just think it's unnecessary, and we're not trying to write code. We're just trying to make reasonable and clear recommendations.
Okay. And then one of the recommendations that was stated had something to do with ensuring property rights. That's where I'm kind of confused.
No, that one says no change necessary.
Okay, that's where I was.
Yeah, and originally I had thought that we could put your comments there as an explanation of why there's no change, and it might have made it clearer.
Yeah, no, those are all implied laws that are inherent that don't need to be explained, because there's something that I can't take away something like that already belongs to the citizens. It's not something that you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, we're all on the same page with that.
No, we're cool. In the memo, we want to recognize your contribution.
Okay.
By making that statement.
I was really confused. I'm having a hard time with just a couple of following. So thank you for clarifying that.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do, is to clarify it and take out the confusion. Because if we're going to talk about stated goals, but we don't have anything that says stated goals, we need to change that language. Just say, these are our recommendations and for your consideration.
If I can help a little bit. So the bullet point 3 and 4, I agree. Our code currently addresses those 2 bullet points. So it does make sense to move that to something that we identified as a key issue. And the fact that our current code actually covers those concerned. It does make sense to just move it up to the prior section.
Okay.
Is the committee okay with that? Okay, all right.
Oh, and there's the duplication on the prohibited trees. I think it's the first one and the final one are actually duplications. So I would just cut the final one out.
I think those are two different things, because one is about which trees are allowed and one is about making it possible to manage what trees are allowed.
We never said what trees were allowed. We said what trees were disallowed.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. Again, we're not writing code. The concept is there, but I mean.
Okay, well, that's not a big deal to me. It just seems to me that it's duplicative.
They were, I mean, I didn't just add them, that they were separate in our discussion agreement, all of our discussion documents. What I was trying to do is make sure I wasn't leaving anything out too from, you know, because I was consolidating.
I'm not criticizing you. I'm just saying.
No, I know. I'm just saying that's how things ended up in there, is because they were listed as separate things. And I kind of see those as separate things, like making it possible. Because right now, does the code currently allow the city to say what trees are not allowed?
It doesn't specify ash tree is the issue.
Okay. So then, yeah, it probably makes sense to only have that covered once. But it does, I guess it's in there 3 times technically, if we're going to say, make sure to cover all ash trees, because that's there too.
And well, the third issue is actually an area that's not under our purview, because it's the Unified Development Code, because whatever we change in the tree and shrub code needs to be similarly changed in the Unified Development Code, i.e. we don't allow ash trees for new development either. So I think it does need to be in both places because they're separate sections.
Well, I didn't mean to take it out of the Unified Development hint.
Oh,
it's in 2 places under 11-5-8.
Yeah, she's saying the first bullet under 11.5.8 and the last bullet are similar.
Got it. Yeah. Yep, I see.
And it may be when the attorneys look at it, because Title 16 is undergoing some pretty massive changes.
Yeah.
When that's going to happen, if it happens, who knows? But they may say, well, we shouldn't even have this prohibited tree thing in 11-5 because it's already covered in Title 16. But that's neither here nor there for us. You know, we're just identifying changes to this code, and it's up to the attorney to put it into legal language, whatever they accept as, you know, from our recommendations.
Okay. So if I may summarize, please, we're going to modify the opening paragraph to be more consistent with council communications, and Maureen has agreed to help us with that. The title for high-level summary of things we considered will be changed to something along the lines of key issues I
think it should have that we considered in it.
Okay, considered key issues. And then
because that's kind of the differentiation is the first one is like everything we considered, and then the second one is what we actually recommend.
Okay, great. I'm fine with expanding on, you know, the goal and purpose of the tree canopy. I'll just add the verbiage that Colleen provided. Under 11-5-8, we can combine the first and last bullet point. Then the third and fourth bullet point would be moved up to the consideration section.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that is the sum total of the recommended changes. Did anybody else?
No, there was also what Member Dickerson said for 11.5.3 makes sense as well, to expand on.
Oh, she's got that.
Okay, you have that?
But there's one final change. I recommended the last 2 paragraphs be replaced because it was confusing about stated goals and attorney stuff, because the attorney is going to take it whatever the council likes of our recommendations, and work with us. So we don't need to tell them to do it. But I would simply—
I think letting them know that we have a bunch of notes and specific ideas, if that's helpful, is useful.
No, because they're going to do what that wouldn't be useful to them. They want to do it themselves. The thing is, when they come in to work with us, then we can tell them what we think. But here, I think it's just very confusing and a little too much verbiage. I think we should just say simply, that Code Enforcement Advisory Committee submits these recommendations for your consideration. That's our job, to recommend. Their job is to direct the city attorney to work with us on legal language.
I need feedback from the committee members on how they would like to close that. I can go either way. I'm fine with either. The end result is the same. We're hoping to capture their attention and share with them, the work that we've done, and ask for assistance with the city council or with the city attorney. Carson, you're the one that wrote it.
Yeah, I mean, I get the question about stated goals, since it doesn't say stated goals, right. But I mean, you could just replace that with recommendations, but I mean, I don't know. I think it's reasonable and straightforward, and lets them know that we understand our place and what we're doing. And I don't, I get what you're saying, Member Dickerson, that's all a given, but nothing's always a given, where two sides or not sides, but, two separate entities that are trying to work together don't always recognize that the other understands their place or their position or anything. So I think I thought it made sense, because it just lets them know that, we get it. These are recommendations. They're going to do what they will with them. And we have more info that we'd be happy to work with them on if they'd like to do that, to take advantage of that. I think it's just a friendly offering.
Well, it's not a point of being friendly. I think it's more a matter of we have a certain authority. It's very limited. And I think we should stick with that.
Which is what we're acknowledging by the way that's written. But I mean, if you guys want to change it, it's not like I'm attached to it. But I've certainly gotten tons of business done being friendly with all sorts of different entities.
It worked with the massive changes we made on snow and ice. We just put down what we wanted to see. The city attorney came back and worked out the details with us on the fly. And
it was a different city attorney. It was a different city council. It was a different time. It was a different.
It's pretty much the same council.
So I'd like to hear from the other committee members. If Sonia, Kara, or Monica could weigh in on this, then we can move forward. Monica? Okay, Kara. How about you, Sonia?
Here we go.
Hey, I'm here too. Sorry.
Go ahead, Sonia.
I agree. I agree with
Carson.
Yep.
That I feel like we're getting to expand it out, and it's just getting to Monica, you probably come up with the better words than I can. I feel like it's just getting too spread out all over the place, and it's not sticking to a clear message.
Monica?
Well, yeah, I agree with that. I think that we are supposed to supply the general idea, and kind of above our pay grade to get into such minute detail. Yeah, that's where I stand on it.
Okay. Cara, did you want to contribute?
I'm here. I'm of the same opinion, and also, you know, agree with Carson. There's nothing wrong with being friendly, and I think that goes a long way. So, you know, that's where I stand.
Good. Thank you. Colleen, I don't think that's material. I mean, it's a matter of preference, and I'm along the same lines. If it doesn't hurt to say what we're saying. And I do appreciate your contributions and your recommendations. I think they have made a great impact, but I think the closing paragraph, I think, is not material like the rest of the content is, and we can just go ahead and leave it the way it is. You had your hand raised?
Except to change stated goals to recommendations.
Right,
Yeah.
Will do. Okay, so I just summarized all those changes, and I'll send those to Maureen, and we'll work up a draft. Can we go ahead and take a vote on this letter as discussed with the amendments that we've made? And that way Maureen can go ahead and draft it out. And then when it's final, I'll send it out to the committee. Maureen?
I believe you need to make a motion and a second.
Okay. Can I make the motion?
You can.
All right. So I'd like to make the motion that we vote on approving the letter to City Council with the amendments that we just discussed, and that will go into a final draft that will be sent to Rita to present to City Council. Those in favor, please show your hand. And that looks like a unanimous approval. Great, thanks. Then we will get moving on that. The second question.
Joey, hold on.
Yes, ma'am.
Nope, nobody seconded your motion.
Oh.
I'll second.
I third it.
I'll fourth it.
I'm a little
okay, now you can all vote.
Okay, those in favor, please raise your hand. All right, that's unanimous. Appreciate it, everybody. One further question. With the Tree City USA recommendation, does that come into that letter? No, it does not. Okay, so, and the other thing that we had worked on was programs.
Wait, Chair Bud,
yes.
On the Tree City thing, I was thinking we would include that document with with the email, because it is kind of referenced in there. Yes, too.
It is. Okay.
Yeah.
Will do. We had some proposals for programs or resolutions for the City Council to consider. And they weren't changes to code, but it was things like when asked, code enforcement can provide information to residents on EAB. Second, incentivize residents to proactively treat or remove trees. Third, restore the urban forestry department. Fourth, establish on the city a quarantine area for diseased or potentially diseased trees. And there's a couple more. There's the financial support to help residents cut down a tree, etc. Do we want to review that now, or do we want to go through that at the next meeting? Is that something that we present to the council at the same time we present the code changes? Colleen, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I think it would be confusing to present it now. I think at the next meeting, we could decide what to do with that, unless you think that, because see, we're recommending reestablishing something that we're already recommending we reestablish.
Yeah, I'm not clear what you're asking about, Chair Bud.
So this was from our June 16th meeting. It's titled EAB programs or resolutions for City Council to consider. it was in our agenda packet from June. I can send it out. I don't want us to hold up the code changes at this point to do this, but it seems like if we're going to go out, if we're going to, I mean, it's going to take us a while to work with the city attorney to modify code. I think we have the benefit of time, but I would like to go through and discuss these because there are things that we came up with that we thought could help residents. And especially, I mean, that was why the 50,000 budget caught my eye, because that was one of the things is we felt like we should be prepared to help residents with this. If the infestation hits us, we can't not support our residents in some way. Colleen?
Which part of the, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
That's actually, we've got that sort of built into our code changes, but since this other stuff is on the council's agenda, supporting, you know, those changes, the budgeting, the assistant forester, perhaps that could be addressed to Rita Russell, our liaison, and to mention it in that discussion. Rita, that's what we were, you know, the programs that they're discussing, actually, that. Weren't they proposing things to help the citizens? They were working towards that. In your agenda packet, that, you know, the budget and a plan they're working on to address EAB and assist citizens with removal and treatment and stuff. I thought you mentioned that earlier.
I'm not certain that council got into the weeds of the line item. That was just a general statement that was made. And so I personally believe it's probably a good idea for you all to memorialize what you would like to do. So there would perhaps be some input in how that budget money is spent.
Well, would that go to Dave Lee then to bring it forward, or the city manager or the treasurer? If it's a line item in the budget, have they already discussed it and it's gone, or can it be brought back up for discussion?
Can I answer that, Chair Bowden?
Please.
What I think has happened, it really probably comes through Dave Lee, and that's where the line item has been discussed, is through Parks and Rec. City Council doesn't necessarily get that information. They get the budget amount, but unless a council member asks what they intend to do with that, we don't necessarily know. And I mean, I think that we still have the meeting next week. I think we'll talk about the budget again. And then there's like the budget comes up for final vote, probably late September or early October. So that's, I mean, I don't know what the line item is for. I just know what the general discussion was about. So,
Carson, your hand's raised.
Yeah, I'm just still trying to find the language you're talking about. I'm looking at everything from June, and
I just sent you an email.
Okay.
With the link to the document. My concern is we haven't reviewed this as a group, and if we do, it would take another meeting, and I don't want to hold up the proposal on code changes. But if we address it at the September meeting, I don't think it's that complicated, because these are just ideas for, you know, Dave Lee and or city council or the city manager to consider when and if an infestation does hit.
Yeah, I remember this now. I mean, I don't think it needs to go in at the same time. I feel like the recommendations being separate is cleaner. And personally,
I think so too, because they really are two separate things. So if it's okay with everybody else, we'll put that on the agenda for our next meeting. But I do think these are really good ideas, because they're outside of code, but key to helping residents and the city manage the issue when it does happen. Okay. All right, so then the next topic was to review. Oh, okay, so that's what that was. All right. I'm going to postpone the review of dangerous dog code to the September meeting, since we're 9 minutes away from the end of the hour and we need to decide how we want to conduct our next meeting. Are there any other topics for our next meeting other than those two? Colleen?
This isn't a new topic, but if we're going to be discussing dangerous dogs, we need to put in the agenda packet anything we're going to be considering to discuss it. It needs to go in every single time if we're going to discuss it.
Okay, great.
Sorry.
Easy to do that. It's one packet. Any other topics? All right, I would like input on how you guys would like to conduct our next meeting, if we want to stay in this format or go to a hybrid format. Does anyone have any strong feelings? I know, Carson, you said you were happy with staying in a Zoom call. Monica?
I prefer the hybrid format here, this online format. And if I were to make any suggestion, it would be that maybe we can do some of this offline. Some like this discussion that I don't know if that's possible, but I just think it would be nicer to do this offline. It's a lot easier if we can look at it and have time to process. And yeah, it's sitting with me kind of heavy, because you know, when I look at other meetings, I just feel like we get a little bogged down in the minutia and the fine print, and maybe that can be done offline, because it might be more. I know personally I might have more to offer during the conversation if we did it that way.
What are you referring to? Are you referring to dangerous dog
Just
code?
when we're going line by line in our recommendations and all that. Like, for example, like I sit on the Parks and Rec committee, and I understand they have a different function, but Christine Underhill pretty much drives the meeting, and whenever there's a motion or any kind of language, it's already been done, and they put it up and they approve it. All this dialoguing is not happening in the meeting. And I would just offer that. I don't know how else to say that.
But the hybrid meeting is something that you would consider.
I like hybrid because it accommodates people who can't make it there. Like, for example, you know, it's just hard to get there sometimes, and it's easy to share things in this format, and it's
So hybrid is in person and on Zoom call.
Yeah, if you can make, like that. In fact, for Parks and Rec, that's what we did last time. The people who wanted to come in to City Hall did, and the people who couldn't or weren't comfortable with that were on the screen in the room. And I thought that was great.
Maureen?
I just wanted to state that I have not been trained, and I don't think most other staff liaisons have been trained yet on how to do a hybrid. But we have asked for training, and it should be done sometime in September. And then you guys can always hold workshops if you want to work things out. You still have to post an agenda, but it's a much more relaxed atmosphere during a workshop. So please remember that you are capable of calling the workshop.
Thank you. I'd like to hear from everyone. Carson, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm not like adamant one way or the other. I just find that the, online, especially when I'm conducting a meeting, like other meetings I've dealt with where I'm dealing with, or even these sometimes where I'm dealing with lots of documents and details, like I'm way more efficient this way than I ever could be sitting at a desk, not at a computer. So that's just why I like this, but I like being in person as well. For me, it's not a fear of COVID at all. It's just an efficiency thing.
Okay, thank you. Cara?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm definitely a fan of the hybrid approach. I've got a very busy schedule personally, and it's hard for me to even get home after work in time for the meetings sometimes. So definitely prefer the hybrid approach. And also just want to reiterate what Monica said, like I'm on another committee as well. And, we've drafted memos and it goes around via email, people send comments, and it's like a one and done. I mean, this line by line also does not work for me. It's extremely difficult to follow. I haven't had time to digest anything. It would be much easier to do this via email, to send comments and just discuss it, a quick approval, somebody gather all the comments and put a draft together. The fine details, I think we get caught up on, and it's just, honestly, I think it just wastes a lot of people's time. So that's how I feel.
Thank you, Cara. Rita?
Thank you. I actually would just like to share with this committee that this is not about you all discussing what you're doing privately. This is a city business. It is open to the public. You are representing the public. The public needs to see this. And it is actually violates the Colorado Open Meetings Law by exchanging emails to discuss this. I understand that, I understand the frustration, but I think that's part of serving the public, and it's not always really easy, and I appreciate all of your time, but the citizens have a right to know about the discussions, and so I just like for you all to consider that in your decisions. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to hear from Sonia and Colleen in terms of their preference for our next meeting.
Okay, I'm fine with a Zoom for at least the next meeting because nobody seems to know how to work it out. I'm okay with a hybrid. In my particular circumstances, I've uncovered a lot of problems here at my house, and it's very difficult for me to leave. I've got a sick dog, I've got other sick animals, and this works out better for me to do it on a Zoom call. I'll just make sure that I don't lose track of early agenda packages, and I will provide any input I have that's detailed to you and Carson, and you can decide if I do it in time, if it gets into the agenda packet, so everybody has a chance to look at it in writing. And I realized it was I was trying to be efficient and clear and very brief, and I didn't succeed, and I apologize to everybody.
Thank you, Colleen. Sonia?
Yes, been preferring just having it be Zoom. I wouldn't mind a hybrid, but just sometimes I'm in a tight time crunch and I only have, and the Zoom works really well with that.
So I think what I'm hearing is the majority would be fine with a hybrid if we can make it. Doesn't sound like we're going to have the ability to do that in September. If Maureen hasn't received the training on how to set that up, then we'll continue with the Zoom call. But as soon as we can, we'll move to the hybrid format, and that way everyone can attend the meeting in the way that they preferred. Maureen, can you just keep us posted on your training, and if it's not going to happen in enough time, we'll just continue with the Zoom call.
Okay, no problem.
And it looks like our next meeting will be the September 15th, Wednesday, September 15th. Okay. All right. With that, I think we have concluded our call today. Is there, we're supposed to leave time for committee members' choice. Oh, sorry about that. Maureen?
Yeah, I was just going to remind you that that's on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. So we have a committee members' choice where we leave some time at the end for anyone that would like to speak up on a topic. Any of that? Okay, I don't see any. Therefore, I will go ahead and adjourn our meeting from today. Thank you all, and it's wonderful to see your faces again. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.